Okay guys, so today we are going to make the color changing snowman from the Dollar Tree and Dollar General. I got two different sizes of these little glass fish bowls, and I got them in sizes that would kind of look like a snowman. The smaller one did come from Dollar General and the larger one from Dollar Tree. Next up, I had some Krylon in satin nickel already in my stash. From Walmart for 50 cents a bottle, you can get your black, orange, and white acrylic craft paints, along with paintbrushes, two small paintbrushes to make the nose, and the 1/2-inch stencil brush for buttons and eyes, one small jingle bell. You'll see why the jingle bell comes into play later. E6000 is the only glue I trust to put glass together. This little ornament decoration from Dollar Tree shaped like a little snowman hat, and you see the jingle bells there. Maybe you see where I'm going with this. I have one LED color changing tea light candle. This came from the Dollar Tree. A lot of people were interested in where I got the color changing light. You'll need a good pair of scissors to cut this scarf, which also came from the Dollar Tree. I've already cut a little bit off for my first snowman. There's some other colors, and there's still more colors at the Dollar Tree. These are super soft, and they're big enough you can make several things with them. So that's everything you'll need. Okay guys, so there are going to be a lot of pauses because there's a lot of dry time. I did forget to mention that you do need rubbing alcohol to clean the glass before you put the E6000 on it. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the rubbing alcohol and wet just a small corner of the paper towel. I have turned the larger of the fish bowls upside down, and I'm going to clean the bottom of that because that's where the first spot of glue is going to go. I'm going to do the rim of the right side up part of the smaller fish bowl. Then I'm going to take the dry corner of my paper towel, and I'm sorry you can't see all of this, but I'm going to make sure that that is perfectly dry. Right now I'm just opening my little LED candle because I need the back of it in case I have an E6000 leak. I always like to ensure that I have something that will catch the glue in the event that I need to sit it down without putting the lid back on. So here we are with the E6000. And I'm just going to put a line around the top rim of the smaller fish bowl. You just need a thin line. We will go back and firm this up after it has dried a little bit. Again, there's going to be a lot of pauses and jumps in this video just to ensure that we let everything dry appropriately. Now that that's done, I'm going to flip it upside down and adhere it to the bottom of the larger one, which is already upside down. I'm trying to show you this without it slipping. I'm just going to push it down, and I'm going to let it sit for a little while, and I'll be back. Okay, so while we're waiting on the E6000 to dry, we're going to go ahead and cut a smaller snowman scarf from the larger scarf that we got from Dollar Tree. I didn't really measure this, but the first one I cut was way too short. The second one I cut was a little bit too long, but that was okay. That would ensure that I was able to cut it to the length I wanted after it was attached to the snowman neck, and then be able to cut the fringe out. So we're cutting it probably about 3/4 to 1 inch wide, and approximately, like I said, 16 to 18 inches long. That should be enough to wrap around his neck. Again, while we're waiting on the E6000 to dry on our glass balls, we are cutting the tag off of our snowman hat, and this is where the little bell comes in. I don't like the little nubby of twine that is at the top of the hat. It just looks tacky to me. So we're going to put a little dot of E6000 where that twine comes out of the hat. You don't need a whole lot. You can see the little droplet of E6000, and we're just going to smush that bell right on there. And that helps to cover up the tackiness. So we'll just push it for a moment, make sure it's in there good, make sure it's centered and as much of that twine is covered as possible. And there you have it. The hat is complete. Okay, so next up we are going to reinforce our glass fish bowls with some more E6000. I am just using the scarf to kind of cushion it and hold it there while I get everything ready. That way it doesn't roll off the table and you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm also putting down my backing from one of my packages, as I told you earlier, just in case I have a leak and need something for that. So now I'm just going to squeeze out the E6000 at that seam, and I'm doing a fairly thick layer of E6000 and I'm rubbing the tip back over it to kind of spread it out, almost like you're caulking a bathtub or a sink. And that's just going to help seal the glass together. I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around. And then we're going to let this set up for about an hour or so. I find that as long as you're not jostling anything or being too rough, typically within an hour or at about an hour, the E6000 is dry enough for you to continue working. Just going to go back over a couple spots, and that's it for that. Get the lid back on the E6000. And what I'm doing here is, since there is such a thick layer of the E6000, I don't want it dripping and dribbling, so I'm just going to turn this for a feel, and upside down, right side up, and then just turn it around sideways. I will continue to do this for about a minute or two, so after the video stops, I will continue doing this for another minute. This just helps to evenly distribute the E6000 and no drips. Okay guys, so while you were waiting, we popped outside and spritzed on some of that silver nickel Krylon spray paint, just a light coat. You could kind of see as I moved it around that it is fairly transparent. I wanted to use frosted glass, but it was so old that it wouldn't spray anymore, even though it was practically full. You're going to need your E6000 and your little cut scarf. I'm just putting dabs of E6000 around the neckline. It's basically putting it over where we were doing it the first time, and you just want to go all the way around. Since it's just a little fleece scarf, it doesn't have to be nearly as thick of the epoxy as we did to adhere the glass together. Now our scarf goes around from the back as centered as you possibly can, and now we're just going to tie it one time, one over and under. Pull it taut but not too tight. Since it's glued on, you don't really need to pull it too tight, and we're going to glue the ends down anyway, so that will help keep it in place. Whoops, I forgot something. We need to make fringe. That looks good. Now for the fringe. Just a few snips, about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. It adds so much character to his little scarf. Do that again at the other end. Precious. I am loving this. E6000. And for this, you really just need 2 tiny little drops just to place the ends so that they don't flap around. I have cats. If they see that, they're going to want it. You don't have to wait for this to dry. It's such a small amount that it kind of seeps into the fleece and pretty much starts drying pretty fast since it's not a slick surface. Now for the fun part. We are going to add his face and his buttons, really get the detail going on this precious little creature. I'm using Jack-O-Lantern Orange Apple Barrel brand from Walmart at 50 cents a bottle, and a tiny skinny little brush. I bought my brushes years ago from Walmart and they're just fantastic. I've had them for years. So let's get his nose. You really just want to do a long skinny triangle. You can make it as long as you want, as short as you want, as fat or skinny as you want. You can do it lumpy. Carrots are not perfect, so this is something that you really just play with. I took a painting class one time. It was acrylic on canvas, and they said don't be afraid of the paint. The more paint you put on your canvas, the more textured it is. And I am employing that now and making sure that I add enough paint that it is thick and textured. There we go. Cute little carrot nose for our snowman. So next we're going to use our apple barrel paint in black, 50 cents at Walmart. And we're going to get our 1/2 inch stencil brush. Now I bought my foam stencil brushes just a couple of weeks ago. They came in a pack of 6, give or take, of various sizes. And I've been loving these little stencil brushes for various projects. So we're just dipping paint out of the lids since these are such small areas. Make sure you get a piece of paper or wax paper or something, because you want to dab excess paint off. You don't want it too thick and have it run all over the place. Dab on a couple of eyes. How cute! And it's up to you if you want to do 2 or 3 buttons. I did 3 on this one as well as my last one, but that is all just personal preference. My son told me that I should have used a pencil eraser to do his mouth, but you'll see what I do here in just a moment. So that's definitely an option for you to do his mouth if you'd like. So I'm putting the lid back on. I'm going to shake it up again just to get more paint into the lid. So here I'm using a little bit fatter but still small brush to do his mouth. We're going to dip the paint out of the lid. And again, make the mouth as fat or as skinny as you want, as long as you want, as short as you want. If you want to do dots, you can do dots. If you want to do the line, you can even do this in red if you'd like. Look at that. He's getting a little personality. Isn't he just precious? Okay, so we are done with those paints. We will come back for some finishing touches, but we need to let this paint dry. So while we are waiting, we are going to work on his hat. We're going to use our E6000. We're going to put glue on the top of his head, and it's flat, so you don't need too terribly much. Now I like to use E6000 instead of a glue gun because again this is glass, and E6000 is the only glue I use for anything on glass. Since it is flat and you're not going to be moving this around, you don't have to worry about adding glue gun, hot glue as well, because it's just going to sit there. You don't need the glue gun to hold it in place until the E6000 dries. There are some projects I've done where I have used both. Make sure your hat is centered. Look at it from the side. As you saw, I had to push it forward a little bit because it was a little too far to the back. And look at how darling he is. Okay, so we're going to let this sit for a little while and dry. And when we come back, we have the finishing touches and we get to put this fabulous little snowman together. Okay guys, so now that he's dry, we have one last finishing touch to make him absolutely perfect in my opinion. We're using the white apple barrel paint from Walmart. And again, we are just going to dip paint out of the lid because we use so very little and we don't want to waste any excess paint that we don't use. Take a paintbrush, and instead of using the brush end, we're going to use the handle end. Dip it in your white paint, and this makes perfect little dots to put a twinkle in his eye. Look how precious. I like to go ahead and add them to the buttons as well. I just think it adds more dimension and there's just more texture and more to him. Fabulous. I like it. Okay, so now that that is done, we're going to get everything put away. And now for the LED changing light. This is the reason that we put our glass fish bowls upside down. This candle will slip right underneath our snowman. As you can see, that is a very thin layer of the spray paint, and that allows the color changing light to show through. There you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed.